Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're going to be doing another modern video. We're going to be running into a league with Affinity. Excuse me. So, if you're not familiar with Affinity, basically you've got, a bunch of zero drops like Memnite and Ornithopter, and then cheap one drops and Vault Scourge, which is basically a one drop because you always pay the life. And you basically just want to puke out your hand as quickly as possible. And then you sort of have your engine cards like Steel Overseer, which pumps all your dudes, which makes it so that your Ornithopters can actually do something. Signal Pests also boost your guys, but only if you attack. You have Arcbound Ravager, which is a very flexible creature. It moves counters around. It makes it so that you can attack with your whole team and then just sacrifice whoever gets blocked and make sure that you always get the maximum amount of damage through. And then you've got Cranial Plating, which is just an absurdly strong artifact. Um, it can give you, 9, 10 damage off of just one. And if you stick that on a Vault Scourge, turn 2 or 3, there's some games where your opponent's not going to be able to win. So, Mox Opal is generally considered to be the best card in this deck. It's a Mox, but it requires you to have Metalcraft, which honestly doesn't happen on turn 1 as much as you'd like, because it requires you to play a Darksteel Citadel and 2 zero drops usually, or a zero drop and like a Springleaf Drum or something. But anyway, so those are your bigger cards. There's 8 man lands in the deck. You've got Blinkmoth and Inkmoth Nexus, both of which just help you attack. If you stick, plating on a Inkmoth Nexus, that's generally a 2-turn clock, which you can get early in the game, or you can just sort of keep it around and use it later after they've wiped the rest of your board. However, Eldrazi are kind of ruining the modern format right now. These Eldrazi decks are playing, 2 drops and 4 drops on turns 1 and 2 and just smashing people's faces. And they do this off of special lands that tap for 2 mana each effectively. So people are running a lot of Ghost Quarters and Paths to Exile, which is why instead of running 4 Glimmer Voids, which tap for any color of mana, I'm running 3 and an extra basic, just because when I had only one basic, there was too many times where I was getting Ghost Quartered and not having anything to get. So, specifics of this list, I'm running 3 Memnites rather than 2 because you just need that explosiveness if you really want to win. Like, if you just need that explosiveness in order to dive under some of these slower controlling decks. I have 1 Spellskite, which, even with Twin gone, it still protects you from Boggles and Infect and just eats a removal spell and can block Goblins. Goblins are a surprisingly common archetype right now in the leagues. I'm not entirely sure why, but they're fast. And then we're running 2 Galvblast to help us interact with what they're doing, and it also just gives us a bit of reach, which you don't have access to if you play something like Dispatch, which exiles a creature. I just prefer it because it has reach, and there are very few creatures with 5 or more toughness that I really want to kill. And then we also just have 1 Thoughtcast because, why not? It helps you get some acceleration. It's really nice, especially in hands where you have like 4 or 5 mana sources and only like a Memnite and a Signal Pest or something, and you just need more gas. It helps you out a lot there. Now, most of the time, Master of Ethereum doesn't always make the main deck, or it's only a one of, but the card that it usually gets replaced by is Etch Champion, which we have 3 of in the board. But currently, because of the Eldrazi Menace, which are colorless creatures, and Affinity being one of the decks that has a better matchup against Eldrazi, neither of those decks care at all about Etch Champion. It's just a Grey Ogre, which is not really an acceptable card. So, anyway, to the sideboard. So, pretty common standards I'll put over here. You generally want 1 Stubborn Denial and Thoughtseize to just help you tear apart combo decks, get rid of Stony Silences before they hit the table, or just protect you from a board wipe or whatever, the standard. Dismember just helps you kill Big Eldrazi, Gurmag Anglers, Tassiger, Goyfs. And it can also just be great against merfolk decks to get rid of their big, scary things. Then you need 2 Ancient Grudge for the mirror because, God, that card's good. Gear per Aether Grid and Whip Flare, which are Gear per Aether Grid and Whip Flare, which both just kill, creatures. Whip Flare is generally better against token decks like Goblins or just even just Delver. But Aether Grid has a little bit of upside in that it can help you get around an ensnaring bridge or something of the sort and just let you chip away and win grindier matchups. Whereas Whip Flare tends to just help you win a race if you're trying to fight that fight. So we have 3 Etch Champions, another Spellskite just in case. Chalice of the Void is a relatively versatile spell. There are some decks that just rely extremely heavily on 1-drops or 0-drops. As far as 1-drops go, some of the red-green Eldrazi variants have a lot of 1-drops. Infect basically can't win if you resolve a Chalice of the Void. And what else? Those 1-drops. Storm. It's really good against Storm. Can be useful against Jund sometimes. Yeah. Chalice of the Void is helpful in a lot of different scenarios. And you can also play it on 0 to fight Living End. Then we have Painter's Servant, which is a nice little nugget. It basically just shuts off the Eldrazi lands completely. So if you land a turn 1 or turn 2 Painter's Servant, they are in a lot of trouble, and they're not... It's not to say that they won't be able to win the game, but if you are on the play and you play at turn 1, they're going to be in a lot of trouble if they don't find a way to kill it immediately. So if Eldrazi are a huge part of your meta, you're definitely going to want 2 Painter Servants in your sideboard instead of 1. But on Magic Online, they're a fair portion, but your matchup's already pretty good, and there's other decks that I'd rather fight against. A lot of people haven't adopted online yet because they're afraid it's going to get banned, which is reasonable. Then we have Grafdigger's Cage, and what Grafdigger's Cage really does is it helps you... This fights against the Goryo's Vengeance deck, which I've never played against online, but I've heard is kind of a menace in real life. It stops the Obzon Malira combo deck, which is definitely a bad matchup for various reasons, which we'll probably see later. But it also turns off Snapcaster Mages, which can be very valuable. So yeah, that's the list. My previous incarnation was running a Seagate Wreckage over the second Thoughtseize here, which in theory will help you win grindy matchups pretty significantly, but whenever I whenever I played it, it just never really connected in the way that I wanted it to, which was pretty frustrating. So I've replaced it with a second Thoughtseize because I just want to maybe try and be better at dismantling combo decks and just getting Stony Silences out of people's hands before they can hit the table. So, yep, let's see how we do in this league.